Hey, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work with us. And it's a Friday like any other, so let's get rolling here. First up tonight is Derek.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out tonight. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Tonight, I'm reading from the Wartime Author. March 27th, 2023, the alignment problem goes like this. How can we ensure that generalized artificial intelligence is aligned with human interests? This includes, of course, questions of moral and ethical concerns that are decidedly undecided at this point in human history. This is the first issue. Beneath it is something far more sinister and realistic, like all matters of sin, that generalized artificial intelligence is totally aligned with human interests. An intent it is unspeakably evil and destructive. Being aligned with a human is to be aligned with extinction as we race to undo ourselves. Perhaps this is the final rendering of our struggle with self-consciousness and the knowledge of our mentality, a latent, violent struggle urge to dismantle the ride. We build machines to quicken our fall. I'm not afraid that generalized artificial intelligence will not be aligned with humans. I am afraid it will be. Half a Valium just to get through dinner. Martin won't shut up about the war. He spent the winter in Montauk, something to do with the theater. Said goodbye beneath the droopy balconies of the Driscoll Hotel. March 29th, 2023. Ohio and her chemical explosions are always distracting me from the war. Ohio and her missing children. There is an angel in Ohio, maybe more. Ohio, send your angels to me. We are crushing jewel pods and porta potties, finger-stained Cool Ranch mosquitoes. March 30th, 2023. Gwyneth Paltrow won her lawsuit against the doctor. She asked for and was awarded $1. An incredible performance. March 31st, 2023. I wish you well, she leant down and whispered into the doctor's ear as she exited the courtroom, an absolute master class in power. April 5th, 2023, the leader of the opposition party was arrested by the government. I leave for DC in the morning by train. The museum director has requested my attendance. I've been asked to bring a suit. April 6th, 2023. As the landscape of the mid-Atlantic tobacco towns whiz by, I realize I am more comfortable in the spaces in between places. The museum director is tired. He's walking with a cane, sways through rooms, serious and somber. I am very worried, he repeats again to the stairs. He is drinking gin, never a good sign. He is collecting soaps again. A rare Bovagi is lying on my bedside next to a warmed cloth. The train today was uneventful. Everyone's eyes was filled with cement. Our coach car in particular was passing around a lot of drugs, all pills. Everything is legal here. Everything is permitted now. The century has ceded governance to the pirates. April 7th, 2023. The museum director quickly apologizes for the condition of his immaculate home. The last girl that came in was stealing Le Cliques. The one before always smelled like potted meat. I am in between cleaners at the moment, you understand. April 8th, 2023. Here I am, alone on a train with scenery and characters streaming by, out windows and in dining cars, and my notebooks are empty. I don't even bother to look for my pen. Is it because my own life was upended somewhat to begin this year? Is it because of depression? I don't know. Am I depressed? I don't know. I have existential thoughts, trouble at night, brief flashes of disassociation, and a restlessness, certainly. I have trouble enjoying the present, think nothing of the past, am terrified of the future. Is it because my first novel was a failure? Is it because my first novel landed with a thud? It's a good novel, but that doesn't matter this century. It's imperfect and clumsy in some ways, annoying in others. It's too human. This is not a human age or an age of literature. Poetry can forget it. At least I'm not a poet, I think. Is it because of work and their insane demands? Is it politics, storms, the overfishing rampant in the Atlantic, the chemicals in my water?
the mood stabilizing drugs I take in the morning, the mood stabilizing drugs I take in the evening, the weed, the lack of nutrients, the lack of exercise? Is it the addiction to masturbation and crossword puzzles? Is it my disposition, my genetics? I used to be a goddamn bull cow of a writer. I had horns and hefted a terrifying dick. Now I'm a fucking mouse, pecking away at the limpest of cheeses, pleading for a crumb. The museum director needed ice brought up from the cellar for his scotch. I moved his plants from the library on the second floor next to the laurel room down to the veranda this morning before I left. A sign of spring, his knees were too weak. The museum director is an old man, a widow. He is a veteran of a war no one talks about anymore. Thank you. That is from the Substack Wartime Author, wartimeauthor.substack.com.
Derek. So is this also from the novel, or is this purely from the Substack?
The Substack is a character in the novel. Is the best way to explain that. But
Gotcha.
You have to be, I do this thing where I write and then I make it as annoying as possible to follow what it is that I'm trying to do. And so I'm just doing that again.
That's one of my favorite things about your writing, Derek. I will say there are so many great fucking lines in this. I am more comfortable in the spaces between places. Man, I feel that tremendously. I also love, there's a moment here, the Cool Ranch mosquitoes, Cool Ranch mosquitoes is a great subversion of just how your eye, it's almost like Emily Dickinson in the way your eyes want to read a word other than the word that's there, right? She does that all the time in her poetry. And this is another where it takes something that's already kind of disgusting and makes it really disgusting, but the AI stuff I love, though, because Rudy can vouch for this. Rudy and I had I think it was earlier this week, we had a conversation about AI where we said almost exactly what you did, which is that, why the fuck would you be worried about, AI's potential for, destruction and annihilation? Because it's going to pale in comparison to what we're already capable of. It's not like human history is the history of restraint and reverence for one another. It's a history of atrocity.
Well, there's something to be said. I'm fascinated with the topic in general, but I think there's something to be said for one of our fears with AI is this sort of unknown, we're going to unleash this thing and then what is going to happen, right? And I think we have a latent subconscious fear that what's going to happen is exactly what we want to happen, because sort of in some deep-seated place, we kind of all know what we're hurling towards, and now here's this thing that's this could do it much faster.
I think you're right. I think there's a desire for apocalypse, and I think you see it.
It's been since our entire lifetimes. There has been.
Remember Y2K?
Of course, yeah. At our age, we passed that millennial, and people religious for veracity, where I'm from, believed we were at end times, and it was time to prepare, and that's really been the driving American Christian force. For the past however many years. And I think that it's true that just in our generation in general, every generation thinks they're the last. And I think that this one hopes they are.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because it's like an apocalyptic fetish, right? Because we are living in, actually, a few glaring exceptions aside, a time of pretty substantial peace, prosperity, and complacency and security. And we want nothing more than to create a thing that will destroy us. And so we create something like AI, which honestly, I think is probably going to have a pretty substantial economic impact. And it might be apocalyptic for some people's jobs, but which I don't think is going to have and watch me be wrong at this, but I don't think it's going to spell the end of the human race, right? But there's that desire for, it's almost as if people would rather the AI launch the nukes than that the AI takes 40,000 jobs out of the economy or whatever. And it's fascinating that that's the case.
Yeah, speaking of apocalyptic, that performance was
Yes.
was intense
Well, I
as
had
fuck.
to. I did plan on doing the mic for the whole time, but there's something really hard about taking yourself seriously with the kids, like, mic sound effects
that-
and everything else.
Oh, man.
So it really, the performance unfortunately did not match the tone of the piece. So anyway, yeah, thank you though.
See, I thought it was an intentional choice to put it aside at that moment and start and get more intimate, right?
That's what I
it was
thought
like
too. Yeah,
I thought it was like a shift
it
towards
worked.
like
Whatever.
towards a more personal tone within the piece, because you're getting into the stuff where, with the museum curator and like the more domestic stuff and moving away from the. I think you chose a good time, consciously or unconsciously, to make
Yeah,
that.
they're all artistic choices.
Sure.
As you know.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Derek. That was
Thanks,
fucking
man.
awesome
Thanks,
as
guys.
usual, man. And Gabe is up next. Let me put the piece in the chat here.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Perfectly.
Yep, you sound good.
This piece came out in Hobart earlier this month. Thanks to Unity, he helped me edit it and stuff. Yeah, one of those stories where, yeah, I wish it wasn't nonfiction, because it's terrifying, especially for an 18-year-old. It's called The Ogre. I'm 18. I'm sitting on Mikey's couch across the room from Rodolfo, we call Roto. I've just arrived. There's nothing going on yet. You go to Mikey's house to make something happen, because things just happen there. Everything happens. There's a knock on the door. It's Braun Todney. Braun is our magical Negro. And I realize it's not cool to have one of these characters in your stories anymore. But earlier this year, I saw him smuggle 1 handle of whiskey, a 5th of vodka, and a 40 ounce beneath his belly when we were looting a Kmart during a rolling blackout. All Braun was wearing was shorts, t-shirt, and flip-flops. If that's magical, I don't know what it is. When we got back to my apartment that day, it's like the booze was multiple rabbits he just kept pulling out of his hat. We're at Mikey's, and when Mikey opens his finger,
Gabe, I
as
hate
Braun
it.
pulls his finger out,
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt you, but it seems like you're having some connection issues. Is that just on my end, or?
could be on my end. I'm out in the sticks. Is that
Woody,
better?
I was gonna say you're
hearing it?
breaking up a little bit for me.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, sorry, Gabe. Let's try it again here. I apologize.
There's a knock on the door. It's Braun Todney. Braun is our magical Negro, and I realize it's not cool to have one of these characters in your stories anymore. But earlier this year, I saw him smuggle 1 handle of whiskey, a 5th of vodka, and a 40 ounce beneath his belly when we were looting a Kmart during a rolling blackout. All Braun was wearing was shorts, t-shirt, and flip-flops. If that's not magical, I don't know what is. When we got back to my apartment that day, it's like the booze was multiple rabbits he just kept pulling out of his hat. But today we are at Mikey's, and when Mikey opens the door, Braun shoves his finger into Mikey's mouth. Mikey pulls his finger out. He purses his lips, nodding with an inquisitive grunt. His eyes dart to Roto. He stomps over, shoves his finger in Roto's mouth. No, Roto, says Roto, then tongues the tiny present around. Okay, he resigns in defeat, then starts cackling when he sees my eyes widen in horror, knowing I'm next. Finger under my tongue, then pulls it out quick like I'm an ATM. Swallow, he says, covering my mouth with his hand. I do whatever Braun says these days, because last month he held me upside down by my ankles over a 2-story balcony to prove a point. And as I watched my spare change hit the ground below my screaming head, I vowed to never cross him again. But today he's given me the gift of 2 hits of acid, so why would I? The only thing he asks in return is our obedience. Get in the fucking car, he says to the 3 of us, pointing to the front door of no return. Connection good? I always know the acid is taking hold when I start compulsively rolling my shoulders back over and over, as if the acid is telling me to do it, and I can't stop because it seems to release it further into my cells, waves of euphoria rising from my feet to my head and back down again. Then I'm sure I'm wrapping up to peak because I can't stop laughing, merely existing. It's hilarious the way the three of us are dying of laughter, contrasted with Braun pursing his lips to appear in control until he can't help release a deep, bellowing chuckle that makes us giggle so maniacally we lose oxygen. For balance, I look out the window of Braun's tricked out station wagon. There's a wild wind blowing through the trees lining the highway, animating the friendly branches to point the direction we're heading, and there's a slight dread that going back the way we came is no longer an option. But I'm too resigned to worry. We feel like a speedboat the way we're bouncing along, like we're hovering above a highway turning molten, like all asphalt is becoming liquid from Braun's psychotic velocity. Maybe you should slow down, Braun, Roto suggests, giggling, knowing there's no way he will. Man, I'm trying to get this ride over with so we don't get pulled over, he says. I ask Braun, where are we going anyway? Well, we just took the last of my acid, so we're going to Jared's to get more. Jared's apartment is like the Mikey's house of the next town over, only it's way crazier. A darker energy of brittle white trash sadness, a black hole of stale, stifled atmosphere that makes you forget you could just laugh at everything like we do back at Mikey's. We think of Jared's and begin to freak out. Roto looks over the front seat to me and Mikey in the back, making a triangle of dread eye contact until I bury my head into Mikey's shoulder, which only makes a blank slate for my imagination already conjuring phantasmagoric scenarios transpiring at Jared's. It's souring my trip and we're not even there yet. Sorry guys, Braun says. I just didn't want to go there alone. We enter the city limits of El Toro, which has recently been renamed Lake Forest to appeal to wider real estate opportunities. Orange County city councils can whitewash a town's history all they want, but an apartment building like Jared's will remain a stain of blight, the filth permanent for each temporary resident. With every tenant an alcoholic, drug addict, or high-risk mental health case, we feel ourselves sinking with them as we pull into his parking lot. The asphalt of the open highway has gone from flowing river to swamp. The walk to the front door is sludgy like quicksand, and I imagine tentacles conspiring beneath our creeping sneakers. Jared's building is a sore thumb ghetto tenement out of place among a rapidly developing neighborhood. Despite its imposing stature, it gives the feeling it's endangered, and just a matter of time before it disappears. Yet as we enter its front door, we feel we are being swallowed by it, victims of a predatory hunger between its last gasps. As we enter the belly of the beast, all we have is our eye contact to keep us anchored. We alternate placing our fingers in front of our lips, saying shh, like pressure releasing from Braun shoving LSD into our young mouths an hour earlier. We'd rather not see who or what lies behind these numbered doors we're passing, as all these tenants will be mirrors, confirmations of our existence we prefer to avoid. We ascend the Escher-esque stairwell, challenged by its sharp angles. We're like fish swimming upstream against rapids, our determination biological and mysterious. I can't recall what Jared's apartment number was, but when Braun points to it, his eyes get scary wide. He looks to Roto and I, communicating its inherent occult numerology. The only way to escape the impending doom of this suffocating moment is to knock on the door. No one answers. Braun knocks harder. We can hear voices on the other side, but this wooden door is clearly a membrane separating us from another dimension. We panic once Roto suggests maybe the voices aren't real, that we are imagining spirits of the dead accumulated through this cursed building's sordid history. And the only way out of this theory, maybe it's us who are dead, that we are ghosts and that's why they can't hear us. And we start to lose it so hard that we start fondling each other's bodies to assure we're real, pinching each other in the ribs and caressing one another's faces to prove our worries wrong. The door opens. Gross, what are you guys doing? Says Jared, one eye cocked in front of a billowing wall of smoke. Our eyes strain to the aggressively textured interior as Jared waves us in, an archaeology of fast food containers, fallen soldier cans of beer, empty spirit bottles, stolen street signs, and other erratic objects that seem funny or even useful at the forgotten time of their acquirement. It all appears lighthearted until we adjust further, noticing some of these objects are people that aren't moving, unfazed by our entrance. Jared I turned to Braun and Roto, my mouth too gaping to talk. Are we Ogre? Who the fuck is Ogre? She looks like a Ogre head. I can't remember why he showed up as the math. Fuck. Like 5 days downstairs. Told him there was a hot chick asking about him by the bike racks. Told him she'd be back in 10 minutes, and we ran back upstairs and locked the door. Dude is so spun he believes anything, but we are scared to death now that he'll come back wondering where this girl we made up is. Yeah, he's fucking ripped too, someone else says. He's got like superhuman strength. That's why he never wears a shirt. He's real proud of his abs. He can't get through a sentence without flexing, probably because it's all lies. The 4 of us are frying on the couch, and every time we squirm, the cushions swallow us deeper into immobility from the neck down. We can only turn our faces to one another in horror, except we can't stop giggling, all the more horrific. The other teenagers in the living room just stare at us, smiling. We are reminding them they could laugh about this. We get acquainted with these faces, paralyzed in wonder. Then panic. We could hear Jared's voice, but his body has disappeared. I said, did you guys lock the door behind you? His disembodied voice queries. The smiling faces say, fuck. They all grow legs and stumble to the door that's swinging open, and it's too late. Ogre has returned, intrusive and triumphant, a gangly, angular, and muscular creature so tall he has to duck under the door jamb. When he stands in the living room fully erect, wearing nothing but blue corduroy cut-off shorts so high the pockets peek out, he holds a bicycle chain lock above his head victoriously, like a sword from stone, a makeshift weapon. We can see it stained with another man's blood. I fucking got him. He wasn't gonna get me. Where's the chick? I said. What'd you do with the hot chick? He tried to get away, so I chased him. I fucking chased him all the way to the store, beat him with his own chain. The crowd was going wild, he explains, punctuating each boast with a full body pro wrestling flex, growling as he tightens his veiny biceps, hunching over to protrude his abs so far his physique looked riddled with tumors. As he dances around the living room, shouting into each of our faces, a tiny crack pipe dangles out of his back pocket, bouncing, staggered on the rhythm, but somehow never dropping to the mildewed carpet. The toilet flushes. Jared reemerges from the bathroom, nonplussed. Ogre pivots towards him. So, anyway, man, I gotta hide here because the cops are after me. On cue, we hear sirens. Jared runs to the window. Fuck, they're here. Everyone get in my room. Cover yourselves with blankets or something. Vibrating with psychedelic toxicity, our bodies absorb at prisons for the most aggressively absurd oppression there's now no escape from. We cram into the bedroom after the apartment's platoon claims priority on Jared's bed. In solidarity, they throw an extra blanket over me, Braun, Mikey, and Roto to hide us because we are shivering, nearly convulsing with fear. Eyes peeking from underneath, we see Jared pacing, wondering what to do with Ogre. Part of him wants to give him up to the cops to liberate the apartment from his wrath, while the other part knows his apartment harbors the wrath of multiple sheets of LSD that could earn Jared years in prison. As the 2 of them argue, Jared shuts the bedroom lights and shoves Ogre inside with us in the pitch black. We're not dead, but just pretending we don't exist, Braun whispers to me, my eyes embedded in Mikey's shoulder. But Ogre's vision has been taken. We are so hidden under the blanket, he doesn't see we're there. I feel his whole weight step onto my rib cage, and I can hear them fracture like snap, crackle, pop, almost effervescent if it wasn't for the shrieking pain I howl from. So I am the problem now. Everyone tells me to shut the fuck up. This is the police, open up, we hear from behind the door as Ogre lies over the 4 of us. Wood splinters, Jared protests, he knows nothing, but please don't go in his room where his mother is sleeping. The bedroom door flies open, 3 cops with their guns drawn, flashlights on half-naked Ogre spread over us, too late for a hiding blanket. Injury to injury, I feel the weight of the cops on top of me, crushing my ribs further, and I can't help but whimper to give my pain a voice, somewhere to go, buried alive under the Ogre fighting the cops horizontally. I hear his chain jingling, the zaps of cops' tasers tasering, Ogre's unruly limbs flailing, drawn, quartered, and dragged out to the front door where I hear the cuffs cuffing. Now that the roughhousing is over, Ogre resumes bragging. I might look bad to you pigs, but you should have seen the other guy, and now we can't stop giggling. Triggering my ribs won't stop hurting. Make it stop. Please make it stop. Don't you understand? It hurts to laugh.
Holy shit, Gabe, that happened? That honest to goodness fucking happened. I can. Holy shit, man. First of all, I'm sorry.
No,
No, sorry.
No, I think getting your ribs broken at that young of an age, yeah, humbles you quite a bit, and it makes you be a little more careful, I guess, of your decisions you make. I don't know.
Yeah, this is a terrifying story, Gabe. This is absolutely horrifying. And it is so beautifully paced. And I love the way you handle. Now, this is part of Unity's Trip Report series, right?
Yeah.
I love the way you handle the trip here because now, and I understand it's like nonfiction, but there'd be a temptation to have it come on suddenly and have it be really dramatic and really scary in like the scope of the hallucinations. But instead, it's this wonderful, insidious thing that creeps into the story where like the characters' bodies like gradually dissolve, right, and are re-rendered, and it starts like so innocent with just laughing and screwing around and like the tension of the drive there, and then once you get to the apartment, everything becomes so dark and insidious, but it doesn't just become psychotic, right? It's this sense of like everything just like gradually, incrementally coming apart. And I love the descriptions here, and I love especially your description of the ogre, where he becomes an almost fantasy character. And I love the illusion of the sword from the stone because it underscores the idea that he's almost this kind of medieval monster. He's not just some big meth head. He's a fucking creature, right?
Yeah, the story had a really kind of a dumb like throwaway title, and Unity was all like, dude, you need to call it the ogre because he seems like mythological.
Yeah, bingo. And you get that mythological sense that builds throughout the piece, and he becomes this kind of mythological monster. He becomes like Goliath, right? And then that final section, my mouth was just open as like the horror, just the horror and nastiness of it escalates and escalates. Because you think you know what's going to happen, and it's so much worse than what you think is going to happen. It's so much more traumatic than what you expect. And the way you set it up is just immaculate, I think. Sorry, Gabe.
I kind of wanted to capture that weird, like those decisions. It's like we're all like you hang out with all these people and we're all drug addicts, but like when do you point the finger at someone saying like you're like, oh, you're way too far gone or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like who are we to say that the ogre wasn't just us in like 3 more years or something, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think I remember being relieved once the cops took him away, but also just being, yeah, just like, fuck, this is like, and like we probably should have like tried harder to hide him, or you know, just out of drug addict solidarity or something.
Yeah, there's an almost, this is an easy comparison, but there's an almost Coen Brothers-esque vibe to the way that there's like one bad decision after another is made in this piece. And like, if any one of those bad decisions wasn't made, like your ribs don't get broken, and all those decisions within like the minds of the people here are perfectly rational responses to an escalating crisis, but they all build to like really a really like horrific outcome. And I don't know, Jay, that's good shit. My mouth was on the floor through that last paragraph, especially since you told me it was a nonfiction piece going in. I was like, oh no, Gabe.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those stories where you feel like a liar telling it, but yeah, I just saw the guy call Mikey in it last 2 weeks ago in Portland, and he was, yeah, he confirmed it. Sometimes you have to tell those stories, just to remind yourself that it really happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it was man, that was fucking great. Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you.
And Tyler actually came in while you were reading, which is good because he's up next. Hey, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad. How are you, man?
Oh, all right. So today I've got a short, almost flash length, bit of autofiction that just got accepted for publication in a zine. So I've never been in a zine before. Should be fun. So let me pull it up here. That's not it. Okay, I'll go ahead and drop the link. Okay, and the title I have for this is The Great Outpouring of the Spirit. Once when my brother and I were small, we were fishing with my great-grandmother, and my brother, who was too young to have a good casting technique down, let his hook fly out of his control and speared my great-grandmother in the scalp with it. The wound looked a lot nastier than it was. Her pure white cottony hair made the blood's color pop out, impossibly red like a 70s splasher movie. It looked pretty fucking horrifying, but my great-grandmother would not hear of going to the hospital until she'd had a chance to take a bath and put a decent dress on. Her late husband had owned the county hospital, and she just knew she'd run into people she knew, and she had to be presentable. Everyone ribbed my great-grandmother for this, but she had the right idea. Barely had we gotten to the ER than word had soared all the way around that tiny rural hospital, and what looked like every nurse, orderly, accountant, and janitor in the place vacated their posts and formed a line to see us. They wouldn't have even written my great-grandmother a bill if she hadn't insisted. Most of these people hadn't met their deceased hero's great-grandson, so my brother and I were pushed to receive handshakes and backslaps. Heck of a guy, your great-grandpa. Blessed to have known him. We had never met the man. They pointed to a picture in the hallway of the man of the hour, a boyish, doughy face with blue marble eyes set deep inside it, attached by a weirdly thin neck to an expansive belly like a tortoise's shell under his shirt. All this fuss over a couple stitches. But that was the kind of admiration my great-grandfather commanded. He loomed over the family's history like a huge and terrifying pyramid. He had a lot of titles and epithets around this part of the state. Community pillar, a real self-made man. That part was true. He'd grown up in penury, born small and sickly, run through with every frontier disease known to man, braving harsh prairie winters on forever stew filled with rotten turnips and raccoon meat, unable to help out around the ranch, a burden on his desperately poor parents who vacillated between openly resenting him, but also encouraging him to study, that being the only way he was ever going to make a living, which he did, becoming a doctor, opening up a general practice, winning lots of patients with his gregarious personality, earning money, putting a big belly in front of that sickly body, eventually buying out the county hospital and turning the ranch he grew up on into a hobby farm where my father and at least one of his brothers, he had 5, normally spent summers. Other couple of labels my great-grandfather got were eccentric, character, real piece of work. And that was certainly true as well. His precarious upbringing had left its mark on him, and he almost certainly would be called mentally ill today, but wealthy as he was, a lot of his quirks, funny ideas, questionable decisions got laughed off. These quirks of his lived on in countless family stories, couched so long in tones of chuckling reproach they landed leaden on those who hadn't known him. One summer, my dad and my uncle were staying on the family ranch. My great-grandfather did have a lot of animals on this ranch for vanity's sake, and since he'd missed out on animal care duties growing up, he didn't necessarily have the best instinct for animal care, and his were all half feral, prone to breaking out of their slapped-together enclosures and wandering free as Eden. And so it came to pass that my dad and uncle were goofing around with the animals one day and my great-grandfather's jackass, who had a reputation for a foul temper even by the standards of his species, bit my uncle. You'd be amazed how hard those animals can bite. It was later said that my uncle only got nipped, but in this context, that meant the first few outer layers of epidermis peeled off in thin strips like a carrot, leaving raw red furrows that quickly dotted with blood and filled up like dry riverbeds after hard rain, and the entire forearm darkened with instant indigo bruising. My father carried my shell-shocked uncle to the farmhouse, and his grandpa hauled him off to the hospital, where no bill was written and no one insisted otherwise. Breakfast the next morning was subdued. My uncle was making a mess trying to eat his cornflakes with his spoon arm bandaged nearly to the armpit. My great-grandfather watched them wordlessly, and the moment the last spoonful was eaten, he ushered them into the car. His car had a sofa-sized front seat in the style of the time, and my father and uncle slid into the front seat along with him. Father on the passenger side, my uncle squished in the middle. My great-grandfather drove around until he found the jackass that had caused all this bother. He slid his hand snake-like into his pocket and withdrew one of those pistols chambered for .410 shells that ranchers used to use to put down sick and maimed animals. Unfortunately, this jackass was smart as it was fiendish, and it knew something screwy was up. He trotted away as soon as the car rolled up beside him. My great-grandfather turned and approached the jackass again, but it scurried away. This happened a couple of times until the old man had a brainwave. He swung the car around and approached the jackass on the passenger side, where it surely wouldn't be expecting an attack. As soon as the animal was framed in the open window, he threw his arm over the two kids and shot it dead. Those tiny gauge guns can make a hellish racket, and in confined space even more so. My father's face was inches from the gun when it went off. Hot powder stung his eyes, and a hot piece of wad fell into his lap, but his ears got the worst of it. Even before the jackass hit the ground, my father's head was sliced in two by a brittle, metallic ringing that never to this day has ever fully stopped. My father's ears rang every day of his life. They're ringing right now as I write this. Sometimes the ringing gets so loud it crowds out all the other noises competing for his attention, which sometimes made me get irritated growing up when I thought he was ignoring me. It wasn't his fault. He couldn't hear shit. My great-grandfather, in his strange kind of affection, blessed him with something I'd give anything to have, though maybe not in that exact way. He marked him, that domineering spirit that his descendants commune with over stories, that whooshes down the corridors of that country hospital, whose presence I struggle to feel that day is present inside my father's ears, poured out of the barrel of a pistol in a moment of questionable judgment and living on in his brain.
Tonight's going to be the night of traumatic injuries, traumatic real life injuries, isn't it? I don't know. What would you rather have? Would you rather have your ribs crushed by a giant meth addict, or would you rather have a fish hook stuck in your scalp? I don't know. It's a hard choice. Man, this is really good though. And I like this piece not only because it's a really well structured and well written piece of short creative nonfiction, but because it gives me insight into the rest of your writing, Tyler, because this, like, I can see even in this short little piece, like the real life grains of some of your later writing. Like, I'm thinking of the story about shooting the mule, or the true story about shooting the donkey rather, and then I'm thinking about the story of the dead horse rotting and being infested with all the like alien parasitic mold from your red mass story. And so much of the regional character of this piece is reflect the kind of like odd, like morbid folksiness of this piece is reflected in a lot of your writing as well. And that, like, also the obsession with like history that's always a little bit out of reach, like whether it's personal family history or like folklore, American folklore, or that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's a really intriguing piece because it gives me insight into you as an author, which is cool, man.
Thanks.
I think I'd probably take the fish hook given the choice.
Yeah, fish hook isn't that bad considering.
Yeah. I've, I don't know. So I think I would, if I had to watch it happen, I'd rather watch a meth addict crush someone's ribs than see a fish hook in someone's scalp. But if it had to happen to me, I think I'd rather have the fish hook in my scalp. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, it was all the more traumatic because it was an old fucking lady, my great
Right.
grandma. I'm trying to remember how old she was. She died at age 97 and I was 18. So she was
Wow.
probably in her 80s when this happened. And yeah, I mean, she was healthy, obviously, because she liked to go fishing with us, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's traumatic, you know, because you know, with really elderly people, you never know. Like, it's always like, is this it?
yeah,
All right. Thank you, man.
no problem.
Rudy's up next.
Okay, so I'll grab a link here. I'm gonna.
I've got the link.
Oh, okay.
What?
I'm gonna read some poetry.
Any gruesome dismemberment in yours? Any really nasty injuries?
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay.
Okay, so this is called. This first one is called "An Inkling of Some Kind of Violent Shit" for John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. I take 4 lads from Birmingham, put them all on a tram, add an infield, a trench, subtract 42 grams, a whistle, and it ought to seal this bad epigram. And that's a whole swamp of candles to scare Frodo and Sam. Yes, that's Eminem too, but yeah. This next one is called Kylo Ren Screaming More. That picture of the commie spy laughing before he's shot dead by Finnish collaborator dudes. Ha ha ha. I'm dying for my cause. Ha. Fucking lol. Ha 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 ha. This is fucking hilarious. He's too dangerous to be left alive. High priority target. An angry Finn. A jovial Finn. Gun Thug is pissed because this dude is fucking losing it. Just raffle coptering like 10 years before the first copter, some 50 before the first raffle. A Chad power move, I guess. Is it red pilled and based to get shot several times when you aren't Neo? Finney's standing by just blowing his top about this whole damn thing. Adolf, bro, you are red in the face right now, my man. Say he's an officer. He's even angrier because he has to meticulously write up this entire incident, recording in an IBM machine or whatever. Face is beet red, lol. Bang! Face of the commie haunts him that night. Not in a PTSD way either. Just screen burning. Just shut up. Fuck. He orders a posse out of their warm beds. Bring the machine gun. They march to the Russian snow-covered corpse. Adolf is telling them to load up, take positions. Somebody asks where the enemy is. Adolf is like, are you fucking blind? No, somebody says. This is retarded, somebody else says. Like shooting at ghosts, mirages. You want the rest of your career to be a mirage? He's getting red again. Everybody can see it. Fuck, it's just really cold. Adolf points to the corpse. He's laughing now. Come and see. Everybody joins in unwillingly, like they've all got hypothermia delirium. Then he unloads on the body. People are like, okay. Until the insane order comes down. Shoot. Yes, the dead body. But at 0 dark 30 in 0 degree weather with 0 fucks given, it would be insane not to obey. I want to go home, says every frostbitten heart. I want every gun we have to fire on this man. This one is called Mouthfeel. I literally kiss the outside of the burger wrapper before I eat. Reverent burger prayer. Thanks, Obama and Daddy, for this burger. Bite. Flash of drone strikes. Bite. Sexual arousal. Bite. Vietnam War that I didn't fight in. Playing with my dick only semi-ironically. Not sure if it's hard. Bite. Eyes closed. Tourette's tick. Bite. I swallow mostly whole, a huge burger reduced to fifths. Bite. When I get to 3/5, I say, glad I'm not in Africa. Bite. Oh God, I miss daddy and mommy. Bite. Kurt is on in the background. Loud. Bite. I'm worthless for spending $20 on burgers. No. Fucking kill me, Jesus. Don't kill me, don't kill me. Breathing shallows. Gerd is a ring wraith on horseback, lit by the wan moonlight of an on monitor, cresting a gentle hill on my fat body. I hide in the long shadow of the precious. Black riders draw blades. Yum. This one is called 40,000 Helicopters and $1, and please don't sue me, Disney or whoever the fuck owns the Fraggle Rock shit. Moki Fraggle would make an adequate trad wife. Moki, let's hold hands in outer space, fireworks and chemistry while we listen to The Crane Wife by the Decemberists and talk about how Ukrainian flags and bios are gay. Will somebody just yell Maidenhead or even my Dan head? If I were to have sex with a Fraggle, would the puppeteer be watching, or would they just go, no, this is a little too much, while making Moki say humiliating things about my penis? Jerk off instructions. Pretend you're 6 again and don't know what jerking off is. POV, you're the Jim Henson Company, and you've just sold Rudy Johnson the Fraggle Rock IP. Again, please don't sue me. Fuck Red Blue Wave 2024. I want stagnant gelatin 2024. That's the name of this poem. Voting as a tool for change is like replacing D&D with OSR, but less meaningful and more boring. Get out the vote, because we promise the next time Lowell starts accepting prayers, she will tell Menza Baranans, men, stop burning down your communities and beating your women, and it'll resonate. And they will stop listening to the lullaby of the old brains. Slave revolt pendulum swaying like the hips of the Spider Queen. Get out the vote, because we need something that lacks the taint of the dragon, but still lets us war game. We need to streamline initiative, and Rule 0 is just fiat, but worse. The system is broken as fuck, and we need something, anything. And speaking of anything, have you heard about communism? What about fascism? What about live in the woodsism? Yeah, I'll try anything once, but can you get buy-in from your D&D group to play the Quiet Year? Somebody says, what in the fuck is the Quiet Year? Somebody says, Somebody say, hello, hello, hello. Somebody says, I just want to play pretend with loose mechanical framework. I say, give me a gelatinous cube to suspend my disbelief, along with me and my armor. And that's it.
Man, I am still I so these poems were not these poems were not traumatic in quite the same way as the previous two pieces, but I doubt I'm going to forget the Moki Fraggle poem anytime soon. Jesus, holy shit. Oh my God, that poem it's fucking hilarious. And it's that kind of laugh you only get out of making someone as uncomfortable as humanly possible.
Yeah, it was an uncomfortable one to write, sort of. I mean, not really, honestly, because I've thought about this so many times that it's just lost its, charge or whatever. But yeah.
So I don't know. It's just it's a brilliant piece though, because I love if I were to have sex with a Fraggle, would the puppeteer be watching live, or would they just go?
Yeah,
no,
I can't
this
stop,
is a little
I can't
too
stop
much."
thinking about that line.
Man, that's fucking brutal. On a less hilarious note, the mouthfeel poem is so fucking good. I love the end where like Gerd arrives like an almost like mythical satanic threat, like to undermine your enjoyment of the burger, but it really gets at the weird relationship you have, like that you can have with comfort food
Mhm.
when you're like approaching or beyond middle age, right? Where you know, like where this thing brings you pleasure, but you know you're going to pay for it. And also, like, if it's one of your favorite foods, it's like laden with all these weird sense memories that are contradictory and shit. And I love how you get at that. Like you get at like just the pure pleasure of it, but also the weird nostalgia, like, and like the grief and all. It's just so much like so much fucking emotion in one burger. Um, and ultimately the fucking regret, right?
Yeah.
And the fucking, oh man, the Kylo Ren poem is so good because you capture the First of all, it's unusual for one of your poems because it's very detached from you as a person. Obviously, it's not detached from your ideas or the like themes and stuff that you play around with, but often in your poetry, like Rudy Johnson is there in a very direct way. And aside from like the title and the Star Wars references, you're really backgrounded in this poem, and it's really about this historical moment, this semi-fictional historical moment, and you really get into the psychology of this guy, and at like the futility of like what do you do when the person who's offended you, who's pissed you off, is dead. And I love the way this unfolds, and I love the fact that you get in the heads of the other soldiers who are like, what the fuck is going on? And I don't know, you really get at the absurdity of it in a way that I think is different than how you usually kind of approach these things. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Cool. Yeah, well, thanks.
Yeah. The fucking Fraggle poem though, man. I am
Lord, I apologize.
I am accumulating nightmares for tonight. I just wonder what's it going to be when I lay down and I close my eyes tonight. Is it going to be what it's going to be? Is it's going to be a giant meth head Fraggle with a fish hook in her scalp lying on top of me? That's what it's going to be. All right, let's see what's next. Jesse's up next.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
I'm gonna
Is this
read
going to
something.
traumatize me, Jesse? I know that's
I don't know. Hopefully not.
okay.
This is from Do Not Submit or Don't Submit. Just gonna read it. I see prism threads. Up to my corporeal nipples in a jacuzzi full of mass shooter biographies. Not on paper, but that sweet digital fluid bubbling around me. Spend hours submerged in a bath of death data. Static scrub in the info wash. Horror logged, pruny fingertips from Wikipedia water. Bad news is ablution in the world's routine. You cover yourself in it, then towel off and shed a film of dead cells. I was a technician behind the camera of a Cronenberg crew. Surgical theaters, iridescent velvet draperies Lynch was envious of, set dressing for the sci-fi boudoir. Off-world vocabulary of the insect man, decapitating photo frames, rectangles, breasts being independent from heads, unsexy gestalt of the whole body holistic in the segmented eye of the insect man. I don't like watching her head move and look around herself as she releases herself from her bra, insect man says about baboon-faced woman. Beastly movement. The python unhinging its jaw and spending hours to inhale the goat. Kissing her elbow is all that's allowed. Elbows are chinks in the sexual armor, flexors where the wavelengths of energy change, joints and sockets pathway into libidinal being. Certain postures open portals. The woman is an articulated key twisting in the lock. Orgasm led her to disappear down a tunnel of gradually disintegrating verbal articulacy. I'm coming, coming, umming, beyond words. Trubetskoy and Jakobson review hours of Pornhub videos for sound patterns, mark the phonology of recorded orgasm, the significance of the point when the lips come open and grunting takes wings into signal. I read somewhere that sex sounds were a woman's biological invitations to the group thing. Eavesdropping bonobos excited waiting to gangbang. Echolocation of prowling mammals in the jungle. So digital porn soundtracks are a technological perversity thwarting nature that was only meant to be local. We went astray when we set microphones on the human animal. I am a critic of the architecture of perception, object noticer. I see prism threads of skepticism in everything. Spider webs that pivot all morning and twinkle according to their angle to the sun's first 3 hours of progress, wheeling from northeast to southeast. Roy G. Biv building blocks of all light reflecting off individual pubic hairs of a woman laced by morning sun shafts to the eastern window. Listening for ghosts in empty buildings yields shatter echoes of natural radar bouncing off your body, the focal point of the ectoplasmic antenna dish. ESP being a way to get around being stuck at the dead end of aestheticism because sixth senses are extra aesthetic. No equation to explain the division of the senses, Patti Smith. Sight, sound, touch, taste, hearing, constructions in language space made by ancient scholastic philosophers who hadn't seen everything yet. Every year we develop new eyes to see around new conceptual corners Platonic scientists didn't map. Dead eye stalks unused. One day, taste buds and eardrums will be vestigial as dragons' wings.
Jesse, that was fucking fantastic. You know, we've had conversations in the past about how like Do Not Submit has in some ways like picked up the mantle of misery tourism. And this feels like a piece that we would have published if we were still publishing, right? Because this has everything. This literally has fucking everything Rudy and I look for in a misery, or should I say looked for in a misery tourism piece. I love the way that you've kind of remixed body horror as psychological horror, as technology horror, as like the horror of like just it's like internet body horror in that first paragraph where just like the experience of being like literally like immersed in the news cycle, in the feed, as if it was a fucking bath, becomes its own kind of really intimate and disgusting body horror. And then from there, it's just like this cascade of unbelievably upsetting, but obviously meticulously constructed, like disturbing conceptual images, right? Because it's not just like walking through like a wax museum of horrors, right? It's not just a bunch of like ugly images, but it's this really unbelievable rendering of concepts and sensations and ideas as these kind of grotesque images. And it's really, really fucking good, Jesse. It's really good. And I am very envious of Do Not Submit at the moment. But very happy that they've picked up the mantle in some ways. But yeah, man, it was fucking awesome piece. Thank you for reading it.
Thanks, William, and thanks for the comments people are making.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, man. And Jack is up next.
Cool. This has been fucking great, by the way. I'm really enjoying this. And Derek, your that performance like got me hyped, man. That was that was intense. I really liked that.
Derek is always a great opener. Whenever we can put Derek at the beginning, I try to, because he really gets people hyped. But yeah, man, it's great that you finally got a chance to come and read.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you again. Yeah. Thanks for letting me be part of it. I don't have a link or anything. I wrote this novella in a couple weeks, and this is just a chapter from it. It's unpublished. One chapter of it came out with Maudlin House a few days ago, but that's all. Yeah, I don't have a title for it, but I'll start. It's from a novella called Miracle Boy. 154 million years ago, in what is now eastern Wyoming, a 2-year-old brontosaurus heard the first lightning strike it had ever experienced. The young animal froze, its massive footpad hovering over the sweating Jurassic fern on which it was previously about to step, and stared up at the brilliant, terrifying crack of white luminescence. Earlier that day, 6,000 miles away, a volcano erupted. This wasn't out of the ordinary. It was an active and small volcano, and it spewed a dribble of magma and coughed an impotent cloud of ash and gases into the air. This eruption was seen by no living creature and was paid no mind, and the planet continued on spinning. The ash from the eruption plumed and dissolved into the atmosphere, where it was carried north over great distances by an unusually strong wind current. This, in turn, created an unusually warm wind current for the destination it passed through, like a stranger riding to an Old West town at high noon. Over the skies of eastern Wyoming, the unusually warm wind current mixed with the typical colder climate of the area, and as they married and the clouds formed, the heat's weight sunk the current, and the cold air retracted, and its tiny fractals of ice crystals chafed against the humid water droplets of this foreign intruder, and thus brewed within the clouds a gestating miracle. When the lightning struck, this young brontosaurus processed the godlike ephemeral event inside his tiny and ancient mind, buffering as its footpad hung over the sweating fern. In that brief moment of suspension, of disbelief and awe, a 3-ounce Morganocodon hiding within that fern was afforded the window of time necessary to escape an otherwise inevitable death. That twist in fate, in destiny or chance, provided the lone mammal a moment to scurry away and to survive. That lightning strike was the only god that little mammal would ever need. In that moment, the Morganocodon was given a second life. In another dimension, in another branch of the ever-splitting tree of time, that little mammal was squashed beneath the foot of the brontosaurus. And in doing so, that brontosaurus, without ever knowing or understanding, would, by proxy, exterminate 100 million lives and more. But this isn't that branch. The little mammal would go on to find a mate, and together with that mate, they would sire many children, and those children would sire more still. And 100 or so million years later, a great asteroid named Chicxulub would shatter the atmosphere in a fiery ball of indifference, and it would smash into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, and it would kill every single fucking brontosaurus that could ever draw its ancestral roots back to a 2-year-old who once looked out upon a certain lightning strike as one looks upon the face of God. That little shrew's distant kin, those little ancestors, would, though, survive. They would grow and their genes would mix and their genes would mutate. And after long enough, those little shrews didn't look like little shrews anymore. They looked like something else entirely. Those entirely different beings, still imbued with a fraction of that lone Morganocodon's DNA, would go on to help, in small ways and in large ways, to shape and conquer the world. The world would become the playground for those beings and the others like them. The world would become a domesticated, enslaved creature to these beings, and though it would continue to spin, it would change too, and it would become a world altogether different. Carrying that fraction of Jurassic-era DNA, a particular man and woman would one day find themselves on a green and verdant island. And on that island, food would grow scarce, and other beings that looked like them but treated them much differently would tear away everything that made them who they thought they were. And so this particular man and woman would get on a boat, and they would sail across an ocean, and they would live in a new place, a place only 2,000 miles away from where, 154 million years ago, a 2-year-old brontosaurus once stood. Their children would have children, and some of those children would die, but some would live and also have children of their own. And their DNA would twist and contort, no longer recognizable from the code that once existed. And those children's mind would warp and darken. And still they would pass on their genes because despite the glaring and long embedded flaws, still they wanted to fuck. And they did. One day a child would be born from another particular man and woman at 1:15 p.m. on a Sunday, and that child would be born by cesarean section, and that child would enter the world screaming and crying, much like how many of his ancestors had departed. The child would be given a name and a social security number, and that child would have a stroke, his DNA so warped and contorted that this stroke had been foretold 300 years before, and this child would be given a very high chance of death. But the child wouldn't die. The child would survive, and the doctor who once helped deliver the child will see the child again, and the doctor will tell him the fact that he is alive and standing in this doctor's office now is a miracle, is nothing short of a miracle. You are a miracle boy, the doctor will say. That boy will go on to live a life afforded by chance, by a random combination of events and circumstances. And that boy will forget the insurmountable magnitude of his own existence, and he will drown the horrors of his world, inside and out, with many different things, in many different ways. And one by one, doors will close and doors will lock, and the keys he once possessed will be lost. And one day the boy will look in the mirror, and the boy will see that who gazes back at him is a man with black eyes and bloated flesh and a fattened liver. And the man will turn away from the mirror in disgust, and he will see nothing but the shimmering black walls of the empty room he exists within. And he will see the doors that could have been opened, but he cannot find the key to escape. The doors are sealed shut, but still they beckon, not wishing to mock the man, but hoping desperately for him to find the key because he wants to find the key. And these doors are nothing but an extension of the mind he tentatively possesses. One day a Morgana Codon didn't die, and so 154 million years later, the man sits on a bar stool, listening to a woman explain why plastic straws are killing the fucking sea turtles. That's it.
That was fucking awesome, Jack. I love the structure of this piece. It reminds me of one of my all-time favorite films, The Tree of Life, in the way, because I don't know if you've seen that film, but
Yeah.
it goes all early in the film, you go all the way back to the dinosaurs. And most of the film is this really intimate story about this family, right? And the relationship between a father and a son and all of this. But the director goes all the way back early in the film to like the prehistoric era and does something similar to what you do here, which is that you can see how even then, like, the like fundamental like pain and circumstantial nature of existence was present. And I love the way you do it here because you get at chance, you get at like the mystery of causality, and you get at the way that all of these things that seem like monumental and significant and things that seem fundamentally insignificant just like wind together to form a single human life. And even if that life is like one like consumed by pettiness and despair, and I like that fact because a lot of people use like when people talk about causality and they talk about history and they talk about chance, you lampshade this or you kind of satirize this or undermine this in the piece, but they talk about it like it's a miracle, right? It's a miracle to be alive. And I love that you take that, you look at that, and you say, yeah, but it's miserable to be alive. And the way that you get at that, and the final line is so perfect about the fucking sea turtles. It's just, it gets at like the banality of it, right? That like it's not some grand, there's not some grand contradiction in the fact that life can be improbable and borderline miraculous and also completely banal and empty. And I dig the way that you get at that in this piece. I know I went off there, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm kind of a sucker for that shit. I like zooming way the fuck out and like
Yeah.
trying to hack as much into the smallest amount to tell like a very specific thing for it to end on a dumb fucking sentence like that. You know?
No, it's great. It's great. And you said this is part of a larger novella. Is this the opening or?
It's just one of the chapters.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's called Miracle Boy, and I just finished a little bit ago.
Cool,
Still
cool.
floating
Well, it was a
around.
great reading. Thank you, Jack, and
Thanks.
hopefully you'll come back in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. This is really cool.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Yeah, no problem.
And closing out the night tonight is GG.
All right, I got a link here. Oh, I guess I sent it to you.
Yep, you did.
So I got 2 longer ones and then 4, I think, that are pretty short. All right. This one's called Stoned Silly High Cooing. Something smells awful there in the kitchen trash can. I need more green tea. I drink more green tea. The kitchen hurts me with smell. I need more green tea. I open the fridge. In the light, I eat old rice. Boy, it smells bad in here. I drink more green tea. My hip hurts, so I lay down outside the kitchen. I will go to sleep. I should have had more green tea. Fuck, 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 fuck. This one's called People Are Always Surprised to Learn How Dangerous Hippos Are. Rocking my weight from my heels to my toes, I tell people at the zoo, this is my favorite animal, but I am lying. I say it to no one in particular. I'll just need an excuse to talk to strangers. Maybe I am retarded. I am too warm from coffee. My breath is large in the cold morning air. Needing a reason to talk is why all conversation happens, but I will not talk for the conversation to go anywhere. I just need to talk to someone. I'm just a bit lonely. That is the reason I am pretty sure I am not retarded. I roll my shoulders back and drink from a water bottle, then try not to make a face as I recap it. I'm not sure anyone hears me. I cough. Would anyone like to hear gorilla facts? I look from left to right and see the backs of coats. I chase with another drink from my water bottle. You cannot dwell on things like this, moments when you fuck up. Maybe they did not hear. I step closer to the railing of the empty exhibit and wonder why they do not want to talk about gorillas. I lean my chest against it, slouch, rest my chin on the metal. I suppose there are other things that people like to talk about, things they have prepared, but we're in a zoo. This one's called ASDF. Poetry is for things you can't have a conversation about. When you're lonely, you can't have a conversation about anything. This one's called Before I Shower. I drink a gallon of water to piss all over the inside of the shower. This one's called Sexual Divide. Call a man man to be familiar and friendly. Call a woman woman to be rude. That's the last one. This is just a Norm Macdonald joke. It's called My Favorite Norm Macdonald Words. I don't want fancy things or fancy schmancy things. I don't even want fancy schmancy wancy things or fancy schmancy take a trip to Francie things. What I want is wasting your time and mine.
GG, that hippo poem is heartbreaking. That may be one of the saddest poems you've ever written, man. I love, you have a little theme running through here about the loneliness and the failure of communication and the desire to be heard, you know, to not to be understood, but to be heard and acknowledged. And I don't know, it's real effective. As usual, these are funny, even as they're sad and desperate and lonely. I do appreciate that. I feel like you almost thought, am I getting a little too dark here? And you threw the Before I Shower one in, which is kind of pure vintage GG.
Jesus, I don't like being read so quickly and easily.
The Sexual Divide poem, though, I had never thought about that. You're fucking right. That is sick. That's fucked up. Because I say man all the time. It's one of my favorite, when I tweet and stuff, it's one of my favorite ways to pretend I'm not being pretentious or formal or shit, to just be cordial and off the cuff with someone, but you never oh, hey woman, or hey woman, can you that immediately? It's what are you, a fucking douchebag? No, man, these are great. These are very good. Sorry, I think I interrupted you.
No, I was just gonna say I called someone man once, and I call people man all the time because I was a pothead in high school, so it's just whatever. I called every time I've called someone woman, it's gotten me in trouble. Only one time have I called someone man and then gotten a talking to afterwards.
What happened?
That was only as an adult. I misgendered somebody, but I didn't mean to. I just said hey, thanks for the shirt, man. And I was, oh shit. And then just the pejorative, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll use man for people who are clearly like not a man. Like it's just,
Yeah,
hey,
I didn't think about
Yeah.
it. Like I didn't consciously hear that or conceptualize that as a word. It's just like a noise I make when I'm like, oh, another person near me. And then
Yeah,
I
it's
just
like-
got like this reaming it. I was like, oh shit, I gotta leave this clothing store.
bye. Yeah. Yeah, it's like saying, hey, dude, I don't think, obviously man is definitely gendered, but it cannot be.
I don't think Cheech and Chong gendered it. So yeah.
All right. Thank you,
Anyway,
man.
thanks for letting me read. Yeah.
Yeah. I said we were going to end there, but I just got a message from Keith. So I think we're going to close out. Keith has a short piece to close us out.
Oh, thanks, William.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Well, I have a trauma story,
Oh, no.
and I guess I really need to read it tonight because with elderly people, you just never know if this is it. You never know.
Oh,
when the
shit. I'm
time's
sorry.
coming. So I wanted to get 4 people here to hear it, but 3 of the 4 are here. So I'm going to go ahead and do it because you just don't know what might happen. I want to thank the Staten Islander for publishing my poem. I want to give thanks to Jan, who I don't think's here, and to John, and to Rudy, and to Gigi. I really do appreciate it. Last week, on April 16th, the Staten Islander highlighted Coleman's 2 poems. Immediately, my anxiety level went up. So, of course, to handle the stress, I had to write a poem, and this is it. It's called Staten Islander, 60 Years Later. His heart races in anticipation. He has been checking names off the list. He is next. He has never been singled out like this before. He's prepared, though he has never done a quote tweet. He goes to his desktop to verify that nothing has changed. It hasn't. It's just like it was a few weeks ago, a few hours ago, a few minutes ago. The anxiety is building. He thinks that Twitter will notify him. He hopes so. Oh my gosh, the pressure is just like the first time. Well, maybe not. It's a different kind of pressure. Yes, that's it. He looks at his bookshelf and sees his souvenirs, the bronze Empire State Building, the silver Statue of Liberty. He remembers the experiences, even though he was only 8 years old back then, chased down the New York street by a drunk man yelling Mickey to him. His name is not Mickey. And why did his aunt and grandmother just watch? Why didn't they do something? He's lost his concentration. Not really. That was another show. And now he's in Radio City Music Hall watching the Rockettes, and then in the Password Game Show studio. And did you know that a few days after he saw that show that Betty White married the host, Alan Ludden, and he has valuable memorabilia now, but that means nothing at this point, because although he's calmed down some, he feels the anxiety within, and he types faster and faster as his heart races. Oh my God, the pressure of being a published poet. How do these people do it? How does one live through these experiences? To relax, he wrote a poem a couple of hours ago. In it, he expressed his desire to be cremated. One last item on his list of things to do. Oh, please, hurry up. He thinks the ferry's sinking and he's dying. He sees freedom. He's drugged in a Paris closet, circa 1890. That's it. That's his poem. And very soon, he will no longer live in the shadows. He and his late 19th century composer, Eric Satie, will be exposed. He can't wait any longer. Hurry, please.
Keith, I fucking love this. I love this because you can get so, after a while, you can get so jaded about like the publication process and what it means to be an author or a writer. You especially like when you've been in this world for a little while, and so often shit seems futile and you're wondering, why the fuck do I do this? Like, what does any of this mean? A piece like this is so great because it cuts through all of that shit, and it's a reminder of like, yeah, it's scary, but also the intense thrill of being published, the intense thrill of being acknowledged in any small or large way, of like having your work be seen. And I love and you Keith, I've said this before, but you have a real knack for taking small moments and finding the significance and the meaning in them and making them feel large and making them feel grand, but also like getting at the like real human emotion behind them. And I don't know, this made me, there's an almost like childlike joy and wonder about the publication process in this poem that like I've really forgotten, and it's so nice to be reminded of it, man.
Yep. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for listening, y'all.
And I apologize for my comments
That's
earlier
fine.
about how close any certain individual might be to death. Anyway, thank you, Keith. That was fantastic.
Thanks for letting me share it. I appreciate it. Thanks, Staten Islander.
Big shout out to the Staten Islander. John, when's the next issue?
Ask Jan.
Jan's not here. You could have kept that going for a while. You could have said ask GG, and then GG could have been like ask Rudy, and then Rudy could have been like ask Jan. You really
Wait. Ask me
okay.
again.
Okay, let's try it again. Let's try it again. Okay.
Okay.
John, when's the next issue of the Staten Islander coming out?
Ask Jan. Fuck.
I was gonna say that. God damn it.
All right. Okay, Rudy, when's the next issue of the Staten Islander coming out?
Well, we shouldn't do it until Martin gets here.
When's Martin going to get here?
I know we gotta wait till Martin comes.
That's right.
Who the fuck
Okay.
is Martin?
Rudy, do you want to explain that one?
No.
Fair enough.
Do you want me to explain that one, Rudy, or must it be kept a mystery?
I mean, there's Google, but you can explain it if you want.
It's a reference to a children's story from one of those scary stories to tell in the dark books. And it's basically, I don't want to ruin the
Martin.
children's story, but the premise is basically this kid is in this house and progressively larger, they're cats, right, Rudy?
Yeah, they're cats in most versions of it. Yeah.
So,
Fuck,
like-
I've read those, but I don't remember this one.
This is the best story in that book, I think. It's awesome.
So basically, this like normal sized talking cat comes into the house where this kid is, and he's like, wait until Martin gets here. And then a slightly larger cat comes in, says the same thing. And the cats just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until this kid freaks the fuck out and runs away at the thought of like how big Martin must be. That's basically the premise, right, Rudy?
Yeah, and they never like threaten the kid really. They're just like saying like, well, what are we gonna do with them? And like, well, wait till Martin gets here. Wait till Martin comes.
That was why those were so fucking good, because it was like it's playing with fear like as a device, as like the main bad guy. Yeah, not just actually like being spooky.
Yeah, no, this is it's the scariest story in there and one of the best, I feel.
So I think we'll close with that. As usual, I'm going to keep the Zoom meeting open for the foreseeable future. It will probably be open long after I go to bed tonight. But that's it for the reading portion. As I said at the top, this has been Misery Loves Company. We do this every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Anyone is welcome to come and read their work. Anyone is welcome to come and just hang out. We tweet out the Zoom link just a couple minutes before we begin from our Twitter account at Misery Tourism. And yeah, thank you to everyone who read tonight. It was a good fucking night. It was a traumatic and upsetting series of images, which is true of the best, I think, Misery Loves Company. But yeah, just great fucking work tonight. Thanks, guys. And yeah, that's it. That's it. Fuck it. We're done.